Interpreted through unity perspective, we wait on that consciousness of the divine intelligence within to make itself known. We give ourselves over to remembering that the divine consciousness, the divine intelligence lives within every cell and atom of our being. We give ourselves over to that. We give ourselves over to sensing, feeling, hearing, seeing, knowing our oneness with the divine intelligence within. As we take a few moments of silence, I invite each one of us to ponder this presence. Ponder this divine intelligence, this river of life, this one presence, known by so many names within each one of us. ask you to imagine with me and know with me that there is a reservoir of healing energy within each one of us. A reservoir of healing energy within this room, in this place where we have intentioned healing and renewal, regeneration, restoration, understanding, peace, forgiveness. This tiny place in the universe has been dedicated to us remembering who we are. So into this reservoir of peace and healing and remembering, I invite us each to speak out loud the names or events that we are holding in prayer for peace and higher understanding and wholeness. We hold in this reservoir of healing energy the idea, the intention that all world leaders have the capacity to make their decisions from a place of wanting a world that works for all. This divine idea lives within each one of us. We hold an intention that each one of us and all world leaders, all of our global family, wake up more and more and more to remember that this is a world that was created for all. All life. We call forth wisdom, understanding, awareness, awakefulness, presence. What else shall we hold as our intention? Just speak out a word. Speak it so we can hear it, please.
Unity, equality, love, healing, unconditional.
We know that in this moment, all of this is possible, not at some faraway future date, but right now. Right now, I am a presence for peace and healing and unity. Shall we all say that together? Right now, I am a presence for peace and healing and unity. Once more. Right now, I am a presence of peace and healing and unity. And we say, so it is, and so we let it be. Namaste. Okay. God bless the people who created Kleenex. Can we have a little more light, or are my eyes just seeing dimly? Okay, there we go. There you are. Oh, so if tears come, and they will, if laughter comes, it might. If understanding comes today, if peace comes today, if we have an aha, an awareness, and insight, we just want to give thanks ahead of time for all of the ways that our hearts open, our minds become clear, our hearts become widely expansive to hold it all. How many of us have wept this week? How many of us have prayed this week? How many of us know that we were born to be a part of these times where our human family is waking up? And how many of us knew ahead of time that there were going to be some really painful and difficult moments to it? Okay, so we breathe into that, we hold all of that, and we continue our exploration. We haven't just begun it, but we've we've just begun the book that we're basing our series on, You Are the Placebo. A funny name, eh? You Are the Placebo. We're going to be learning about this through September, we're going to be using this book. We're having a class on Tuesday nights. If you can come to some of them, please do. If you miss a few, that's okay. There's no test, there's no essays, no papers to write. Isn't that great?
Yes.
There's only one responsibility that you have, and that is that you give yourself over to the exploration. You can read the book at home. You can listen to the CDs from Sunday. You can go online and listen to Dr. Joe Dispenza. He has a lot to say as a scientist and a man of spiritual understanding. So you can be in your own study, but if you want to do group study, we're doing this on Tuesday nights. So let's define what placebo is. Placebo, a substance containing no medication and prescribed or given to reinforce a patient's expectation to get well. Okay? That's a pretty clear definition. We also have the nocebo, an ill effect caused by a suggestion or belief. Anybody ever had an experience with that? Anybody ever get upset about some story that's going on in your head and then you find that story wasn't true at all, but you still feel upset? Yeah. We really are very creative people. So an example of this, outlined in this book, You Are the Placebo, it's a pretty well-known story by now, written up in a lot of books. 1957, a man was diagnosed with advanced lymphoma. And he found out that UCLA was a test site for a new experimental drug. He demanded to be a part of the study. His doctor told him he could be, which in fact was not a formal part of the story, because to be a part of that test, you had to have a life expectancy of 3 months, and he did not have that life expectancy. But his doctor gave him the new drug, and according to this doctor, the tumors melted like snowballs on a hot stove. On his chart, cured. Then a media report came out, God bless the media, that the drug was non-effective. The tumors returned. Now this is all happening over several weeks, several months' time. So let's take a deep breath. Media said, wasn't going to ever work. It's just a dud of a drug, and the man's tumors reappeared. His doctor lied to him. His doctor supported the idea that a placebo could work. The doctor told him, you know what? The media was wrong. The drug is effective, and the tumors vanished again. The media report again came out, the drug is a dud, and the man relapsed and died. We're not going to end the service there. We're going to So let's think about this. How many of us have had personal experience where our minds do that? Where we are up, oh man, we're at the top of the roller coaster, but there's something about roller coasters. What goes up? Apparently. So don't we do this? Yeah, according to what we think life should be doing, how life should be working, we get upset, we get annoyed, we get put out, we get depressed, we get angry, and we plunge. And then something happens, oh, life is good again. Right, I went to Unity. I went to the Elvis Presley show. I went to Nashville, whatever, we're up again. Oh, but wait a second, and something happens. Okay, so we do this, don't we? Yeah, and we can do it several times a day. We can be feeling, I remember one day we had something happen at the church that we were feeling very sad, and then the very next day we got a letter in the mail that Gene Hoggard had left a bequest to the church. It was like, this is how it goes, isn't it? You know, our hearts break and then something happens. Oh, wow, what a blessing. So we do this to ourselves. Our minds are so powerful. So there's solid scientific research about how our own thoughts and emotions affect our biology. It's not just this book, it's so many books that are out there, so much research. It seems that we shape our brains, our bodies, and our relationships, our world, in fact, by these things. Let's all read them together, get them in our consciousness together. Thoughts we think, emotions we feel, intentions we hold, and transcendental states we experience. So, is this basic unity teaching? Yes. Yeah. So the thoughts we think, what are we thinking on? What are we putting our thoughts on? And how are we feeling about what we're thinking? What are the emotions that are going along with what we're thinking? Right? The intentions we're holding. What are the images we're holding? What are we creating in our own image? What are we creating with the thoughts and the images that we're holding? And lastly, are we giving ourselves over to transcendental experience? Are we giving ourselves over to prayer or meditation or the pause, the sacred holy pause? You know, that Isaiah quote I said earlier in meditation, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. There's something to be said for giving ourselves over to this waiting for the Lord. Now, what does that mean in unity terminology? That you and I either believe enough or know enough that we have this divine intelligence within us that giving ourselves over to it, that holy pause, it can be a matter of a few seconds or it can be several hours, or like some of them at a retreat this week, it can be several days. We give ourselves over to the sacred pause and we wait to feel our oneness with that presence. We give ourselves over to it. I don't have time. I've got my soaps to watch. Or my episodes on Netflix. My granny used to call them her stories. I don't have time. I've got to get over to the Unity Church right now. They're having a Bob Simon concert. Is it a good idea to have a space of time in the day to give ourselves over to waiting for ourselves to feel this presence? Is that a good idea?
Yes.
Then I won't preach at you anymore. So, the thoughts we think and the emotions we feel, I liken that to a scripture where Jesus said, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Updated language, the thoughts we think, the emotions we feel. As we think in our heart, as we're feeling, that's the way we become. That's what we're generating more of. Now, how many of us have figured out it's not just what's going on in your mind, it's what's going on in the whole collective? There are people outside this building thinking right now. It's the whole collective. So somebody says to me, I practice these principles, I do my prayer, my meditation work, I read the spiritual books, and this stuff is still happening in my life. Remember that we are affected by what? Everything else, the collective. Our intentions we hold. I liken that to the scripture, let us have eyes to see and ears to hear. Do we have eyes to see and ears to hear? What are the intentions we're holding? If we want to see more children in this church, then it might be a good idea to make that our image rather than talking about how there aren't too many children in the church. If we want a location for our Unity Church that helps this community become the center of new thought, spiritual education, and healing, if we want that, then that's what we want to hold, rather than it hadn't happened yet. Right?
Amen.
Yeah. What are the intentions we're holding? Eyes to see, ears to hear. Transcendental states we experience. How many of you have ever had an aha moment? Every hand should go up. And these aha moments, are we the same after an aha moment that we were 30 seconds before it? No. This scripture is constantly being fulfilled in us. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, we shall all be changed. It's not just one particular moment when a human being named Jesus might return in the same form and save us all. Everybody breathing?
Yeah.
In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, every time you and I wake up a little bit more, every time we have another experience with being one with the one presence, every time we have an aha moment where we feel our oneness with one another and with our whole human family, with all life, every time we have a moment of forgiveness, every time we have an insight into why something was done or not done, why somebody did or did not do something, every time we find it in our hearts to love and forgive, every time we open our hearts to understanding, we're having an aha moment and we're never the same again. And if that's happening for the whole human family, we have such a huge potential to wake up. I'm just surprised it hasn't happened en masse yet. In a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, we shall all be changed. That word moment in Greek is atomos. It means the smallest amount of time and the smallest amount of matter. Our changes are happening on the inner and every cell and atom and our DNA. Every part of us is changing. And it used to be just a nice spiritual idea that a lot of us were talking about, and it's backed up by research. Nobody can ever say to me, honey, that's a nice religious idea, but really? I get to say, read the book! Read the books, read the research journals, it's all out there. It's not just a woo-woo idea anymore. Everybody say woo-woo.
Woo-woo.
Yeah, it's not woo-woo anymore. This is what's happening. We're changing. Our very DNA is changing. How many of us know we're not fully cooked yet? Or maybe we do feel fully cooked. We are still, what's the word? We can use it here at Unity. We're still evolving. We're still waking up. What did you say, Mary Lou? We're still waking up. It's like the rice is cooking on the stove, it's dinner, but we can't quite eat it yet. We can call it dinner. So we're calling this that's happening in the world, we're calling it awakening. We're calling it remembering who we are. We're calling it remembering our divinity, that we're connected with the Most High Consciousness. This is who we are. And we keep talking ourselves out of it. So placebos have been used in reducing or eliminating pain, in affecting decrease in symptoms, in affecting remissions, cures, and healing. The doctors used to write on the charts, it's only a placebo. There are more and more enlightened doctors now. They don't do that anymore. Placebos are used to trigger release of endorphins. That's our own natural painkillers. Isn't that fabulous? Yeah. Used to replace actual surgeries, and improvement happens. Just a few examples, knee surgeries and heart surgeries, where some people had them and some people didn't, but a lot of people got better even when they didn't have the surgery, but they thought they did. It's in our minds. Have been used to replace antidepressants, and the depression was reduced. Let's all take a deep breath. Neuroscience is saying some individuals seem to retreat from their current reality in order to create a new one.
Sounds good to me.
You cannot overflow the cup. You have to release. Unless you get the new end, which is what is happening right now.
We could say we expand our reality as we are evolving into a new one. Imagine the caterpillar. The caterpillar crawls into the cocoon. Does the caterpillar know just how much change is happening? How many of you felt like crawling into a cocoon lately? It would be good to see it as a transformative moment rather than a problem.
Amen.
We're going to talk more about that. What else can I see here? The neuroscience of change invites us to ask this question. I'm seeing what's happening in the world. I'm seeing what's happening in my own body, my emotions. What else can I see? If I feel like crawling under the covers, perhaps I can see something other than, along with this feeling of depression. Maybe I can see a transformative moment happening in the midst of what feels painful or difficult. What else can I see here? So one of the stories in the book, Chronic Depression Lifts. A woman, 46 years of age, depressed since she was a teenager. 1997, UCLA Neuropsychiatric Institute did a drug trial on a new antidepressant called Effexor. The people involved in this study had EEGs monitoring and recording their brain activity. Antidepressants, is it possible? Now here's what we're not saying. I want everybody to get this loud and clear and then spread the word. We are not saying go off your antidepressants.
Really? Please don't. Please God.
We are not saying go off your medications. We're not saying don't have that surgery. We're not saying don't do that physical therapy. We are not prescribing for you, and we're not telling you what to do. Everybody got that?
Yes.
What we are saying, if it is possible for one person to affect changes and have depression lift without taking the meds, if it's possible for one, then these regenerative possibilities exist for all of us. Can we be, is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, a lot of you know I came out of a former ministry where there was a big focus on healing. There's several of us who have been a part of healing work for a long time. We have seen things happen that cannot be explained medically. A lot of us have seen prayerful outcomes and miraculous outcomes, and they cannot be explained medically. That's why it was always great to be in a spiritual arena where there was a focus on healing and miracles, prayer, because that's the way we understood it, that's what we believed, and huge, powerful things happened. For me, it's extra fun to have the science back it up. But here's the thing. I was praying in the name of Jesus. I know people who've created miracles for themselves who are praying to Buddha. I know people who've created miracles who are praying to the one presence. I know people who their form of prayer was simply to feel the mud and the water around their toes and the oozy mud to pray for rain, and the rains came. They became one with nature. They gave thanks for the rain before it rained. A lot of us have studied these kinds of ideas that come out of every culture, every religion, every faith. What we're talking about is this presence, this intelligence that lives within us, whether we're in a mosque or a temple or a synagogue. We are the presence. It lives within us. We have all of this within us. We're saying if it's possible for one, it's possible for all of us. So here's how it happened with this. One half of the group, 51, received the Effexor. One half received a placebo. The recipients in each group were randomly assigned. Not even the doctors, the nurses, the technicians knew who was getting the placebo and who wasn't. So for all of you scientists, it was clearly a double-blind study. Now the depression lifted. She felt better than she had in her whole life. What's interesting also is that she had some of the side effects that were noted about the drug. She had read about the side effects, and in fact, she manifested those. Isn't that interesting? 38% of the placebo group felt better without taking the antidepressant. 52% of the Effexor group felt better. The most clinically depressed had the highest percentage of relief with the Effexor. So you see, we're not saying don't have your pharmaceutical support. We're not saying that. What we are saying that whether we're being treated for depression, anxiety, whether we're being treated in our bodies for some physiological issue, the deal is, the point is, that there's an inner healer. There's an inner healing wisdom. And if it can lift depression, as noted in this study, let's take a deep breath. Can we also have the same kind of consciousness to lift what's happening in the world, to lift the sorrowful events of the world? Can we use this same awareness to lift the consciousness of our human family? I can hear you. All right, there she goes again. She's that crazy girl up there talking.
We absolutely can.
If it's possible to lift depression, can the same kind of idea, belief, awareness, knowing lift the consciousness of humankind? Because that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
You know, I don't have to tell you, depression is at an all-time high. We have some things to feel sorrowful about. There is within us a healing presence. People have known about it throughout the millennia. It's not a new idea. We give thanks for the scientific discoveries. We give thanks for the pharmacological support when we need it. We definitely want to give thanks for the inner healer. Touch your own heart. Say, I give thanks for the inner healer. Of particular interest, the placebo group not only felt better, the EEG showed they had actually changed their brainwave patterns. Significant increase in brain activity in the prefrontal cortex, which in depressed individuals has very low activity. They can see where the brain activity is, and the people where the depression lifted, it showed their brains were changing. Y'all, this is exciting stuff! Not just in the mind, the change showed up in the brain.
Yay.
How many of you learned in science class there are no new brain cells after a certain age?
Forever.
Guess what? We're creating new brain cells all the time. Norman Cousins said this. Remember, he's the fellow who laughed himself back to health. The process works not because of any magic in the tablet, but because the human body is its own best apothecary, and because the most successful prescriptions are filled by the body itself. Our bodies know how to heal. And the speaker adds, filled by the internal prescriptions of our own souls. What is your soul prescribing to you? What is your soul prescribing to you? Have you listened lately? Have you waited on the Lord, the consciousness within you, to alert you to what your soul most needs in this moment? Because if you're doing that, then you're affecting the whole collective, because our human collective really would be well served to wait on this consciousness to see what else is needed for healing of our minds. Boil it down to this. We're getting our minds right. Have you waited lately to see what your own internal prescription is? Could it be possible that new beliefs can actually change our brains and body chemical? Could it be possible that new beliefs can actually change our brains and body chemistries? Physically rewire our neurological circuitry and alter our genetic expression.
Yes.
I can hardly contain, I'm so excited. Is it possible?
Yes.
Are we willing to consider that it could be possible?
Yes.
So what is had a history of heart disease, and somebody says to me, well, you know, genetically, you're toast. Do I have to accept that? No. What if somebody comes to me and says, well, you know, there's never been peace on the planet, ever. Human beings always fight, and they always will, they always have, never going to change. Do I have to accept that? No. Somebody comes to me and says, you know, there's always been trouble between the races, between the religions, between the political parties. We are doomed. Do I have to accept that? No. Somebody comes to me and says, you know, the stock market is toast. You better start putting up weapons and food so you can survive the Holocaust that's getting ready to happen. Do I have to accept that? No. Turn off the media. So, yes, ma'am. You don't hang out with those people anymore. You hang out in unity. So, here's what I'm so excited about. First of all, I'm excited that it's not genetics, it is energetics. It's all energy. We don't have to be victims or held captive by our genetics. You and I are living in a day and hour when not only is the world not flat, the world has gotten a whole lot bigger and more expansive. We have technology and ways of seeing into things that we've never had before. We're living at the most incredible time. So is it possible that with new beliefs we can affect the healing and wholeness of our bodies, of our minds, our emotions, our hearts and souls? Is it possible that we can affect change for our human family?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I love you people. Are we willing to consider that it's possible? And what I'm hearing is yes. So I'm going to end with this. I took the long, long quote from last week and I've whittled it down a little bit more from our co-founder Charles Fillmore, because he looked way ahead at what was going to be happening. He wrote this before 1948. A great school of instruction and soul unfoldment will be established right here in our midst, and its results will be beyond all present imaginings. The doors are thrown wide open to the mysteries of the supermind. A large and growing school of metaphysicians has made its advent in this generation. We are developing spiritual understanding and the development of a new cosmic mind for the whole human family. I don't know about y'all, but I can hardly contain how grateful I am for the people who went before us who said, get ready, folks. You're going to be a part of this awakening, this unfoldment. You're going to be a part of ushering in this new cosmic mind. And it's going to be this idea of oneness that you can't ever go backwards. Once you see it, you see it. So with all the invitations this past week to go backwards, I'm going to invite all of us to take a really deep breath and give thanks that we are a part of an educational center that is giving ourselves over to soul unfoldment, this consciousness, this new mind. I ask you to touch your own heart. Say thank you, thank you, thank you for the new mind. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the new mind. So it is, and so we let it be. Namaste.